Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Smite Season 8 Update Show. I'm Isaiah, your host for today, and today is a special day. We got so much to go over. Got the new Conquest map, all the 8-1 balance, a bunch of new skins and features, and of course, with me to break everything down, I've got my buddies from the design team. I've got Ajax and Ponfon with me. First of all, how you guys doing?
Good.
Yep, doing well.
All right, well, we have got an absolute ton to go over, so let's go ahead and get right into it. And we're going to start off with the Conquest map. I know we just had the awesome show match where we gave everybody their first look at Season 8 Conquest, but we definitely want to take a little bit of time to go over some of the highlights for Season 8 Conquest. So AJ, I'm going to pass it along to you. What's going on with Conquest? Where are we at? And how did we get there? Kind of set the stage for us.
So this is a brand new map, like the thing we did in Season 5, completely new Conquest map, big change. What you're going to notice first off is the Chaos base. We can say goodbye to Hades' Skull Castle, RIP for Hades, but it has been replaced by Tiamat's Fortress. Which is really exciting. The Babylonian Pantheon finally coming to Smite, as we saw in the amazing cinematic trailer we had revealed earlier in this event. Absolutely beautiful. We wanted to make the Babylonian launch a really memorable launch. It's a very well-known pantheon, one of the oldest mythologies in the world, and it's been requested for a long time in Smite. So here it is going to be immortalized in the Conquest map, not just in the gods that are going to be arriving in the pantheon, but in the map itself. So really what we are going for is a little bit of a story transition from the year of Cthulhu into the year of Tiamat. Cthulhu was wreaking havoc with our gods. He was stealing their worshippers, driving them insane, turning them against each other. Things were looking bleak. The world was ending. But then Tiamat arrives and uses her powers of creation to reborn the earth. Just remake it. And in that process, she banishes Cthulhu back into the depths, or into your queues if you do not ban him.
So you're saying Donsborough wasn't enough?
Donsborough didn't even attempt to stop Donsborough.
For sure. He was just there to chill, drink some sake, and make some money. That was it.
He did hand out some important life lessons to Tsukiyomi, but now we're moving on to the next year, and that is the story. Tiamat has set up her base suspiciously close to Mount Olympus here, just across the Conquest-sized jungle, conveniently, away from Mount Olympus that will still be representing the Order side, but a completely new reconstructed Mount Olympus from scratch, along with a completely new jungle and everything that you're going to see in these patch notes.
For sure. Well, like I said earlier, we're not going to deep dive into it just because we had the awesome show match earlier, but we did just want to hit some highlights here. So we're going to talk about the new layout. Of course, bigger map both ways, right?
We get this request every time we start looking at the Conquest map. People just want the map to be bigger. They want rotations to matter. The map size creates a whole lot of gameplay strategy, and it also gave us a lot of room as a design team to make different types of geometry, different types of jungle path. So really, we were happy to follow along. So the map is wider and longer. We have the jungle completely new. We have a lot of really interesting spaces in the jungle, and when you look at the mini map, you'll recognize it, that there are some more specific open areas to fight in, and then there are other areas that are much more narrow pathed, and that's to create a whole lot of variance in the different types of fights and different types of team fights. Depending on the location, you can have a really different experience on this new map. And we're also, of course, going to have new jungle camps and new camps in different locations and just new camps in general.
Yes, like you were saying earlier, brand new map, completely new art set based off of Babylonian pantheon and mythology. It looks super awesome, but we've also got some new NPCs, and I know you were super excited about the new scorpions that have been added to the map. You want to talk about the lesser and greater scorpions really quick?
Yeah, so we have the Chaos side completely rebuilt in a new theme. The whole map is completely rebuilt, but that's a brand new theme. The Order side, Mount Olympus. Order and Chaos towers are new. Chaos Titan is new. Chaos minions are new. The Scorpions are our new jungle monster. they have two versions. There's the Lesser Scorpions and the Greater Scorpions. We'll talk a little bit more about their mechanics in a minute. And we also have a lot of our favorite jungle monsters from the previous seasons will be reprising their roles. The red buff, purple buff, blue and speed buff, not yellow buff, obviously.
Sorry.
Will be maintaining their art from the previous years.
Cool. Well, let's go ahead and get and talk about the Scorpions a little bit. Let's start with the Lesser Scorpions and talk just a little bit about their mechanics.
All right, now we're doing something pretty crazy in this map here, Pon. We're doing a few really interesting objectives added to the map. We're trying to look for ways to layer on some complexity into Conquest. And one way we've done this is through the new Lesser Scorpions, which are the first jungle camp that spawns inside of lanes.
Mm-hmm.
So on the outside of the duo lane and the solo lane, on the outer edge, you will see these Lesser Scorpion camps that you will actually be able to attempt to take or steal from each other while you're still essentially standing in the same place where you can clear minion waves, right, Pon?
Yep, exactly. They're right next to it. People can fight over them. People can try and burst them down, but be careful if you try and burst
Why
them
they
down. When your
have
opponent's
bucket
around,
on
they
their
might try
heads?
and sneak it from you if they're so inclined.
So these provide golden experience when killed, but they also have some additional new rules which are very interesting. The first of which is when their health bar is depleted, they are not immediately slain. They go into a down state where they have to require a certain number of individual hits to finish them off. So this is to add even a little bit more attention and strategy behind who's going to secure the camp. They also provide a localized healing buff to the team that slays them. So if you do capture them, it is a way to regen a little bit of HP, which kind of contrasts nicely with the way like the totem can restore mana.
For
So
sure.
those are the lane scorpions, the lesser scorpions.
Yep.
But we also
let's
have
talk about the big boys.
Oh yeah. These spawn in the jungle, and they have a lot of interesting mechanics working with them. So at the beginning of the match, they will spawn in the Gold Fury and the Fire Giant pit, and these monsters have one major new feature, which is they are our first jungle camp that changes its spawn location. So when they will first spawn in the Gold Fury and Fire Giant pit. At the time they are slain, is when the Gold Fury and Fire Giant can spawn. If you have to kill these before you can get the bigger bosses to spawn, once they are killed, they will actually relocate to a different spawn point, which is really interesting. And if you kill them, you'll get some experience in gold, but you'll also get a bigger bonus, which is the jungle camps on your side of the map will drop even stronger buffs after you kill these scorpions.
Nice.
So
this is
a lot of
super
interesting details here.
Yeah, I know. Something that we've never done before. I'm definitely looking forward to how people can test these new greater scorpions in the jungle and how it's going to sway the tide of the game there. But another thing that we've never done before that I definitely want to talk about are the all new base gates and Conquest. AJ, what's going on with these new gates on the outside of all the bases?
So this is our first dynamic geometry. This is something that people have been asking for years, and we're really excited to try it. And it's something we're planning on experimenting, and paying attention to throughout the year. We are adding gates to the bases. So when you are in your order or chaos base and you're leaving the base, you will be able to walk out of a gate that is that opens and closes. It's actually it's a blocking area until you walk through it, and then it opens up. It has a opening pad on the interior side of the gates that you have to step on to walk out. So if you walk outside, you are trapped outside when the door shuts behind you. Now, this has a lot of interesting twists and turns to this mechanic. So specifically, we wanted this to be, one, a much more convenient way to get from your base to different parts of the map. It feels so good, Pon. You're my jungler. Tell me how good this feels when you're leaving the base.
Yeah, I mean, even in live, when I am running around, because I've been playing on this map for a while, I actually try to run to the gate area because it's just so convenient to get to your speed buff. It's so convenient to potentially rotate to the other lanes. It's just such a nice path to have that I don't know what I was doing without it before.
So that's the first purpose of these gates. Now, the second purpose of these gates is to add a really interesting twist on Phoenix and base sieges.
Mhm.
So if you're a defender or an attacker, you can now utilize these gates as a way to attack the team in other ways. If you're defending, you can flank this other team as they're attacking a Phoenix more easily by going through the doors, but you need to be careful or you might not be able to go back in the way you came from unless your teammate is there to open the door for you. If you're a attacker, you can camp outside those gates and see if anyone wants to open the door to try to take a look, and when the door is open, go ahead and flood their base and actually get into the Titan and Fountain area without killing any Phoenixes or taking any Phoenix damage. And we've taken this even one step further. Those doors are not that thick, so they can be leapt over or blinked or teleported over. So actually, as an invader, you can leap over the door and step on the pad to open the gate for your team to flood in. There will be penalties applied to people who enemies who invade the gate in this way. There's going to be a debuff area. The Invader's Curse that will slow you and debuff you in other ways, but it is a really interesting risk-reward way to attack the base in a whole new way.
Definitely looking forward to this. I know you guys have been having a ton of fun with this new mechanic. AJ's been going off the walls about it. Super excited to have this in the Season 8 Conquest map. But I think the thing that I am most excited for, is something that we may not have talked about a little bit earlier. And I know AJ has been pushing for this for a long time. It's the idea of a living, breathing Conquest map. AJ, break this down for me and tell me what we're going to be doing this season.
So this is probably the coolest feature of the whole map, and that's that it's a feature that we haven't implemented yet. It's the future. Conquest, we get a new map in Conquest 8.1, and in the history of Smite, we would get a new map every now and then, right? You got a new map in 5.1, and then years before that in, 2, 3, and 4. So it was a long time between maps. We are changing our process a little bit here, where this year we are committed to updating the Conquest map 3 more times throughout the year. Now, these are not going to be full map overhauls, but we are going to take the 8.1 brand new map and we are going to make thematic art and design changes to it that introduce new gameplay, introduce new artistic changes to the map, and we're going to do that throughout the year. Each of these updates is going to have a specific theme that is tied to the Smite storyline and to the gods that are launching around the time that the Conquest updates are launching. And each update is going to bring a different experience. And, I can't give away too much about what we're going to do at each update, but we're going to be investigating things like
these 2 new gods not coming together?
Objectives, something like our expanding the functionality of the Scorpions or the base gates and doing things like that. So throughout the year, instead of just wondering when we're going to make a map in the future or wondering maybe we'll get some changes at mid-season, we're telling you right now that we're going to see artistic and gameplay changes to the Conquest map specifically multiple times throughout the year. And then, of course, that is in addition to balance, which we'll do to the map. We'll be adjusting numbers, health values, damage values, and stuff like that. Golden experience. We'll still do that on a every update basis, but at those quarterly updates, more changes to Conquest.
Super exciting. All my theory crafters out there, go back in the VOD and take a screenshot of that teaser image and start making your predictions. It's going to be super awesome.
Yep.
But another thing that's super awesome, as we move away from Conquest, but still Conquest related, some of the new player experience updates that we've got going on. And the first one is actually going to be a new feature in Season 8, the Conquest Guided System. And I'm going to leave it to AJ again. Take it away.
Don't worry, Pon took lead on the balance and the items, so he'll be leading for the rest of the meeting.
I have
or the rest
like
of the
25 pages to go through. See how that goes.
This is part of our commitment to Conquest, but it expands a little beyond that. It is for new players in general, but it's not just for new players. This is something that we wanted to add for a long time. Better ways to learn the Conquest map. There's no better time to learn Conquest than when it's a brand new map, because everyone is learning together. You're not going to be that far behind. There's a lot of different things to learn. So even the people who are Conquest veterans will be taking the time to learn the map. Now, what we're adding is a new system called the Conquest Roll Guides. This is a new type of tutorial, completely unlike anything you've seen in Smite before. What it does is it will match up with your assigned role from the match lobby, which you'll now be able to trade with other players. We'll get to in a second. And when you load into the map, it will actually show you sort of quest waypoints in the world space to guide you to your starting jungle camp, to your proper lane, and to the your jungle camps nearby your lane when they
Okay,
respawn,
but did you fix
as well
speed
as towards
hackers?
objectives like the
Because
tower and the
in
gold and the
last
fire giant as the game goes on.
like
So this isn't a real
months,
this
2
isn't a
months,
tutorial
there
where
is
you're just like
was a
sitting
lot
in
of speed
a
hackers in
sandbox
ranking.
just waiting
I
for
don't know
step by
about
step and
fucking
like, okay, I
casuals,
press W now,
but in
now do the next
ranking.
thing. This is actually a guided system that overlays on top of PvP matches. So you can turn this on optionally when you're playing Conquest against other players or when you're playing Conquest in co-op mode. So players who want to learn Conquest, you can turn this on during co-op mode to get just a feel for it. And this system is designed to be helpful and give you extra information that you could already get from your mini-map, or you could already know from watching pros or watching streamers or just playing the game a lot. But it gives you some extra reminders for these things, and that's going to be a great way for new players to learn. And we're also going to be able to update this throughout the year, so we can try to have every update reprogram the system so that it shows you exactly where to go at the beginning of the game to match like each meta start throughout the year. We might be a little behind the pro meta, those big brains coming up with new strategies all the time, but we'll be constantly upgrading this throughout the year and making sure that it's an accurate experience to follow through on.
For sure. This is super exciting. And again, like you said earlier, it's something that players have been asking for a long time. Just an easier entry point into Conquest. And starting off on Season 8 with a brand new map is a perfect opportunity for this. And you touched on a little bit earlier about trading roles, but we've also got some match lobby changes coming in. What's going on with those?
So now you'll be able to trade your assigned role in the lobby just like you would offer a god trade in Assault or Ranked. There will be a UI element that pops up, and the player you were trying to initiate the trade with can choose to accept or decline it. We have some additional rules in there to make sure there's no spamming and stuff like that, but you'll want to make sure you get your actual roles sorted out in the lobby instead of just doing it verbally. That is going to be a lot easier for console players, and it's going to be better for our data tracking, and for if you're using the role system and the recommended item system and other things like that that are now going to be working more smartly off of role. You're going to want to actually trade your role instead of just say you're going to trade roles. We're also adding some other things to the match lobby and to elsewhere in the game to help new players find existing tutorial features. So we had some videos in the game already that are really helpful. Now you'll be able to access those easier when you're browsing your game modes. We also have all of these new systems to help new players, like the role guides, as well as the recommended item updates, and we're doing a lot of other changes to things like the help tips, which are these pop-ups that will tell you what
Did
things
you
are
fix
as
the
you walk around
recommended
the map.
items?
A lot of those are being updated, so we added a new button in the match lobby called Guides, where you can click that and kind of toggle on or off the different type of new player help features right there after you lock your god. So maybe if you get a role you're not used to, you can go, okay, Guides on. Like, okay, I play my role all the time, I can turn it back off. You can also turn it on or off in the middle of the match. So just trying to make the whole thing a lot more user-friendly and trying to help players learn the game without sticking them in some boring like step-by-step sandbox, right? This is ways like that we can give you a little bit of extra information as you're actually playing Smite.
For sure. All right, and then last but not least, you kind of touched on it, but recommended items. We're making changes to the recommended item systems to tie that into the new kind of role overhaul that we're doing. And recommended items are going to be tied to your role now.
Well, there's a few big changes here to talk about with recommended items. One that's funny is we changed recommended items to be more data-driven last year, and ironically enough, that caused players to actually lose a bit of trust in the system, because Smite players play heavily off of word of mouth. They play off expectations. We're following Weekend's build site. There's a lot of pros out there, FineOK's guides, but the stat system wasn't necessarily showing the same type of items we would expect. So what we have done here is made a couple changes.
The worst
One is
pro
that
player?
your recommended items will now change much more intensely based on the role that you had assigned to you in the lobby.
Ex-pro player.
So Chang'e Jungle is going to get a very different recommendation than Chang'e Solo.
Because he got
which
kicked.
is something that previously wasn't accounted for very well. We are also going to be changing our data. So it's still going to be data driven, but we're going to be changing the data system to work a lot more off of more popular items. So we really want the builds that people see from the recommended items to match the more expected meta builds. When we were going just off of stats, we would get a lot of strange builds off of players who were doing more more unique things, right? So essentially, we just opened up the data set there to get something that players are going to expect. It's going to be a lot better for new players. And then the other big change is we're now allowing you to enable and disable the auto buy system mid-match. Previously, once you turn that off, it was off for the whole game. But now you can toggle it on or off. So say you had a build you liked,
Yeah.
pre-saved, but it didn't have any anti-heal in it. So you can turn it off, buy that Divine Rune, and then
After
turn it back
patch
on,
notes, if
and
you
it'll
wanna.
just continue down the priority list of what you set. So that's a really nice user
For
quality
sure,
of life
yeah.
feature.
Yeah, no, I remember your name.
All right,
After
well,
patch
that wraps
notes.
it up for some of the kind of the new player systems and guides and stuff like that.
I
Pon
don't
Pon,
know. It
it's your
should
time to
be
shine. We are
Yeah,
moving
it's my turn to
on
talk.
to
1 hour,
balance.
not hour. I don't
And
know.
we're gonna kick things off
Because
with
I'm
starter
not gonna
items.
watch
So
new
as you guys
skins.
may have heard, we're overhauling the starter item system in season 8, and I will pass along to Pon Pon to give us an overview of what's going to be happening.
Yeah, so something that's really exciting is we're actually bringing starter items back. Blessings have previously been here, and they actually served a pretty good role of kind of teaching you what a role could be, right? Like, you got the jungle one, it caused you to kill jungle monsters, but it removed a lot of the flexibility players had previously when they could build their starter items. Like, a Bluestone Wukong was very different from, like, a Death Toll Wukong, where you
Alright.
could use a lot of poke versus actually trying to get in there and brawl. And so now all these starter items are coming back to kind of reintroduce that depth that you can have when you want to pick your character the way you want to at the start of the game. With this, there's going to be 16 new starter items. So
Ooh.
when you pick one at the start of the game, you can just pick it up. That's your starter that you'll have for that game.
Thank you.
Once you leave the base with it, that'll be the only starter you can pick that game. But at level 20 or 17, if you're getting a support starter item, you can actually upgrade them to one of 2 unique tier 3 upgrades. So let's say you pick Death Toll, for example. You can upgrade that to kind of a level 20 version of what a Death Toll could be if it was made as a tier 3 item. Or you can get one of the upgrades that drastically pivots what that item does and its effect to do some really kind of wacky things with it. We're pretty excited to see what people actually do with this, but these tier 3 kind of starter decisions, you have to make a decision at the start of the game, how you're going to want to play, and also that decision that you make at the start of the game is going to affect how you build at the very end of the game. So there's a lot of interesting things that you can do with this, and when we go into the items, you'll kind of see some of these different effects.
For sure. I'm super excited. This is definitely going to open up build versatility and just all sorts of crazy new strategies and ways to play a certain god depending on how you upgrade your starter item. But let's
Do
go
not
ahead
have
and
any
get into the
class
items
restrictions.
themselves. And we're going to group these by role here. So let's start off with carry starter items and start off with one that may be a little bit familiar for some of the OGs out there. We've
Only
got
has
Death
physical
Soul
power.
up first. And this is going to be
Alright.
kind of your standard starter item. Pon, talk to me about Death Toll and what this item is.
Yeah, and one thing to mention too is we are dividing this into sections of like carry, but these are not class locked. This is not only hunter items. Anyone can build any of these items as long as it fits within the normal class restrictions. So if it has only magical power on it, only mages and guardians can build it. But otherwise, it's completely open. You could build this in the solo lane if you wanted to.
You know Osiris
Yeah,
is going to be trying this.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah, for sure.
That's
Bellona.
Bellona, Osiris, those type of
Everyone.
characters. So this
Cool.
one is
and another
the kind
note
of more
before you get started, Pon. We're not going to go into all the nitty gritty with cost and
Yes.
power and stuff like that. Patch notes are live on the site right now, so if you guys want to follow along and get all those details, you are able to do so. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead, Pon.
No, that's good. I'm
Yep.
glad we mentioned it because we want to give people a good idea about what the goal of each item is, what type of roles we expect it in, and what types of decisions you get to make about the updates. But we don't want to have to list out long lists of numbers. So we're just going to kind of give you the core idea of each starter items and each of the
And
updates.
my
And then
fucking
please, if
website
you're
crashed
more interested in
instantly.
the details, go check that out in the patch notes.
Exactly. So Death Toll is the kind of the standard carry starter. This is the one that you're going to pick if you want a little bit of sustain and boxing power in the early laning phase. When you hit basic attacks, you restore health. At level 20, this just gets amped up to level 20. It gets a lot more power. The heal gets much more intense. So you can actually use this to really sustain yourself in the late game. Or you can pivot to be more offensive, where Death's Temper wants you to actually slay enemies to get a stacking basic attack bonus. So if you want to be very offensive, get those big damaging basic attacks because you don't need the sustain anymore, you can transition towards that kind of build.
Smite website
Sure, this one
died
is, kind
instantly.
of standard, like you said, but I'm definitely liking. Already, I'm seeing the kind of standard upgrade versus a wow. What is that one going to do? So let's go on
Exactly.
to our next one, Gilded Arrow, and this one's going to be kind of a more farming focused starter item.
I've been loving
Yeah,
this
so
one.
if you want Yeah, this has been the favorite for. This is the if you can actually last hit, you can get a little bit extra gold and mana and movement speed for each last hit, as long as you are last hitting the target that it marks. So it'll mark a bounty from targets around you, and if you successfully last hit it, you actually get some rewards for it. And if you actually upgrade this to Diamond Arrow, it removes the restriction on the bounty target. It can be any target that you slay will give you a pretty big attack speed stim, some mana, and some extra gold to go along with it. Now, if you just want the more raw stats and you want to be more offensive, you can actually go with Ornate Arrow, which completely changes the functionality. It gives you bonus gold generation, and for the amount of gold that you keep on your person, so you keep unspent, you actually get critical strike chance and a huge boost of attack speed. So this is the, if you want to hold on to like 2.5k gold to get a lot more of these stats, you don't have to get the 3k elixir, but you're foregoing the 3k elixir. So a lot of interesting decisions there.
Oh, nice.
For sure, that one sounds spicy. Let's move on to the next one. We've got Leather Cow. What's going on with this one, Fawn?
This is the utility carry starter item. So this one is focused more about helping your team. So the normal one is Leather Cow gives you some power and lifesteal, and when you're alone, you get more movement speed to kind of get to a fight, and when you're with an ally, you get attack speed to help you fight with that ally. You can upgrade to Hunter's Cow, which turns that attack speed into an aura attack speed, so your whole team gets attack speed while you're around them. Or you can change to Leader's Cow, which turns you into the shot caller. You move your team around and tell them to stick with you, because if you find a target alone, or you fight maybe Fire Giant,
there is no numbers, even in patch notes.
You give them all a huge power stim, as long as you outnumber them. If the enemy team is even in number with you, not as good. So you have to like isolate targets and be the shot caller for your team.
Come on, I need the numbers.
So as you can see, a lot of these items have a lot of new effects. They have a lot of things you're used to, a lot of throwbacks, but we've only looked at a few items so far, and we've already seen the first type of item that extra rewards for last hits. The first type.
Can
of
you
item
buy
that
multiples?
Oh,
here it is.
Stats, which is a
Devtol,
really interesting
700 gold.
choice. The only item
10
that tracks
physical
the number
power,
of enemies
20
versus
magical,
allies
so
and
it's getting
compares them
magical,
against
so
each other and gives you different
75
types of effects,
health.
whether or not you're close to people. So
Passive
we're
hitting
seeing a
enemy
lot
with
of
basic attack restore 2
interesting
health
and unique mechanics throughout
plus
all of these starter items. So
1%
you're going to see
of
some of
your
your old
maximum
favorites like
health.
Death's Toll that you understand the the pretty simple
What?
details of, but
And
make sure
1
you
mana.
double check and check out these upgrades.
Plus
There's some very
1.5%
interesting
of
stuff
your
here,
maximum
and a
mana.
lot of this stuff can be applied to a
Basic
lot
attacks
of
that deal
different
AoE
gods. So
damage
we're gonna
restore
see,
half as
we're gonna
much.
see it's gonna be really interesting.
Are
in
you
this launch to see
fucking
who's gonna be
high?
picking up what on what type of gods.
All right, moving right along from Leather Cow, we're going to start looking at some of the solo focused starter items. First one up, we've got Warrior's Act. What's going on with this one?
Warrior says.
So,
Okay, let's see.
Warrior's Blessing is one of those items that we actually iterated quite a lot in season 7.
600
So this is the
gold.
throwback to that. This is the kind of standard thing
50
that you pick up if you
health,
want to like brawl your opponent.
15 physical,
You hit them, you
10
steal some health from
magical
them, you get some
protections, 2
defense, you
damage
stay in lane.
reduction.
Just an overall solid choice.
Passive
You
damaging
can
an
upgrade this
enemy
to
god
Sundering Axe
steals
to turn
25
that, extra
health
steal
away
into a
from your
percentage
target
health
and
steal
restore it
for
to
the
you.
late game.
The
So if you
effect
wanna,
can only
box your
occur
opponent, you get a big
once
burst of
every
health
10
and
seconds.
steal
Let's
from
trash.
them. That's a choice that you can go. Or if you want to be the hero for your team, if you want to save everyone, you can get Hero's Axe, which makes your health pool a resource to defend your team. So if they ever get CC'd, they actually get a shield based off your maximum amount of health. So if you're building tanky, if you're the frontliner, you can provide a pretty big shield to anyone who gets CC'd around.
It's X, but
Solo
it's not giving
laners
any
peeling
damage.
instead of diving. What slide are you playing, Pon?
I
know,
know, right?
Everyone's going Sundering Axe, I already know. It's fine.
All right,
That's not
next
that
up, we
good.
got another
Devtol is
familiar
fucking
name for the
broken.
OGs
Okay,
out
wait.
there. Bluestone
Leather
Bandit.
Cow,
This one's
7.
gonna be a little bit more
Oh,
aggressive.
okay,
Let's go.
Bluestone.
Yep, Bluestone's back if you like Bluestone
800,
That's the
10 physical
start for
power,
you. It's
20
basically, as you remember, it has some
HP5, then
HP5 on it, it has some
MP5.
MP5 for some sustain in lane, but it also has the, when you hit with an ability, you apply a damage over time to targets.
20
Really good for
physical
clear,
damage
really good
over
for
2
poke.
seconds.
You can upgrade this to level 20 for
25,
Brooch,
max
which
2
is
stacks.
a current health dot rather than just a flat dot. So this turns it into a very offensive item. You can really shred targets' health at the start of a fight, or you can completely change it to Corrupted Bluestone, which takes that dot, makes it a more of a debuffing dot, so it actually lowers their attack speed.
Take
But for
additional
every target you
75
have
damage
applied,
over 5 seconds
you
and reduce
basically
enemy
get a
attack
big boost
speed
of
by
attack
10
speed up to
seconds.
75%.
10%.
So this item
Max
can
2
potentially provide you
stacks.
75% attack speed, which is very different and not what you
Nuts.
would think you'd want
For
in an
every
ability
enemy
user.
you
So
gain
lots of
15
interesting
attack
decisions
speed.
there, and like different characters that
5
can
times. Enemy.
That's a great
Not
example
enemy
because
god,
this was
but
a
enemy.
solo item in in its core, but we have an upgrade that allows it to flex to some hunters, right, or even some assassins.
Yes.
So if you like that early lane clear bonus ability damage, but you still value that attack speed late game, this could be an item for you.
For
Yeah,
sure.
solo collie. You can clear a little bit now, and late game you can just be a chainsaw.
Oh, don't give them any ideas, Pawn. We're moving on. Next up, we've got Warding Sigil. This is going to be kind of a magical protection starter item for solo.
700 gold, 100 health,
Yep. So this is
50
kind of a
magical
counter pickup
protection.
item if you wanna go that direction.
Passive.
If you feel
Whenever
like
you
that matchup
are
is something
hit by
that you
an
really
ability
need
or
to
gain a
handle,
stack of
it'll actually provide some magical protection. And when you're hit by
dampening,
abilities, you get
decrease
flat
damage
reduction.
taken by
So
5
also,
for 5 seconds.
will
This
take
occurs
any
only
damage
once
down. So if you want to
once
brawl
per
with
ability
that
cast.
magical soul
This
laner,
can
where
stack
you're really
twice.
worried about magical
Back.
damage, you can pick
Back.
this up. You
Shout
can
outs to
upgrade it
Mark of the
Sigil-
Vanguard.
Yep, Mark of the Vanguard style effect. You can upgrade it to Sigil the Old Guard, which actually turns it into a % damage reduction. So late game, you can really mitigate a
that's
lot of
good,
damage
but-
with this. Or you can completely turn it that defense into offense with Infused Sigil. If you can eat enough abilities, we actually will charge up the item itself, and it'll explode for magical damage to targets around you. And this can happen any number of times over a fight as long as you're hit by enough abilities. So this encourages you to really just dive deep into the enemy line and just fight.
This is
Now
your
we're
dive
talking
item.
solo
That's
lane.
good.
There we go. That's
What
I'm
solo?
looking for.
Support!
All right, next up, we're
Solo's
going to move
not
to the
gonna
mid
build this.
lane, guys. Vampiric Shroud up next, another familiar name.
Yep, a lot of these are just familiar names. of
850
people that,
gold,
like,
50
a lot of old
magical,
memories. I remember this
power
from season 0,
75
like, in the
health, 15
preseason.
physical
Vamp Shroud
protections,
DT
5
Freya
magical
was,
life steal.
My go-to.
Damaging an enemy
yeah, so this one will
with an
restore
ability
health
gives you
and mana
bonus
when
6
you really
health
steal
and
damage.
6 mana.
It
Can
provides
only
also a
trigger
little bit
once
of
per
protections
ability.
and lifesteal health. So this is the very defensive-oriented start. If you're worried about maybe Assassin Genki, this is a choice that you can go. You can upgrade it to Blood Soaked Shroud, which again just amps up that health and mana restore even more, but also gives you a basically infinitely stacking lifesteal bonus when you hit abilities. As long as you can keep hitting targets, you can keep stacking up this lifesteal. Obviously, caps are still present, but you can get a lot of lifesteal from this item. And then finally, you can just completely change it, turn it to not defensive, sacrifice your own health with Sacrificial Shroud. Your abilities will deal some more damage, but each of your abilities will now cost a portion of your health. So you have to be really careful with this to make sure you don't kill yourself with this item, essentially.
For sure,
Those are
yeah.
some metal names and some metal effects, Podrod.
I know,
Yes.
right? All right, let's move things down and chill out a little bit with Sands of Time. This is going to be our cooldown focused mid starter
Yeah, we'll
item.
see how chill people are after they read the last one. But
Not chill.
we'll get there.
800 gold,
So Sands of Time,
30
another
magical
familiar
power,
starter.
5
This is the-
MP5,
You get some
10% cooldown passive. This item gains 2 MP5 per 10% of the missing mana. This item was in the game.
Which turns the passive just up a ton, as well as gives you extra power based off how much mana you currently have. So when you're at full mana, you deal more damage. When you're lower mana, you restore mana. And it can be up to 160 magical power, just for an example of how much that it is. Or you can just completely change it, get rid of the MP5, and go with the alternate timeline. This item is, when you would die, there's an alternate timeline where you didn't die, so you just go to that one instead. This will revive you after a brief delay, giving you some health back with a very long internal cooldown. So you can kind of see
What?
the level of spice with the alternate timeline.
For sure.
Kepri
yeah.
alt on an item.
Yeah.
Yep.
it's
Are
nuts.
you
Make
fucking
sure to burst them
high?
right when they revive, so that the alternate timeline wasn't too fruitful for them.
Yeah.
This one certainly has
Becomes to see immune, damage
a large
immune,
amount of
and
balance.
unable to act.
levers in
After
place,
1.75 seconds, you are restored to 25 health
Yes.
and mana
These
and
people
can
just
act
tested
again.
this one in
This
particular.
only can occur once every 10
All right,
minutes.
next up we've got Conduit Gem, the last one that we've got kind of grouped up as in the mid
What?
category.
Yep, so this is the kind of aggressive one. It doesn't have as much sustain as Vampiric Shroud. It doesn't have as much mana regen as Sands of Time. But what it does make for is in damage. It has a
30
pretty high
magical
amount of
power,
magical
15
and
MP5.
it has the stack that accumulates over time.
Passive,
You can
every second you
consume
gain
when
stack
get an
of
ability
arcane
to
energy.
deal a
Cost your
burst
next
of true
damage ability
on
deal
target. So this
additional
can be
2
used to help you clear
2
waves,
true
it can be
damage
used
and
to help you
remove
poke
all
the enemy
stacks.
god, and
That
just
stacks up to
overall, it's more
20 times,
aggressive in nature.
so
You can upgrade it to Archmage's
40?
Gem, which just turns
That's
that bonus
not
free damage into
that
a magical power scaling
strong,
component.
I would
So think
say.
raw ultimate with 50% extra power, magical power proc on it.
That's only
get an
tier
idea of,
1s
like,
I'm
how much
calling
burst it's
good.
gonna
The
provide.
other ones is just too much.
As well as Gem Focus, which is a
Write it down.
if you can actually keep casting and keep focused on the game long enough to like keep just making sure to keep the stack up, you actually get some movement speed, some damage bonus, and some damage reduction. So just you have to keep casting, otherwise you lose it. But if you can, you get a lot of benefit from it.
Now I like this one, Pon because this was a playstyle we kind of lost with a lot of our newer starter items. We went to the more equalized bonus damage, or a lot of mages tend to start with sustain in some form, or instead of the bonus damage. This is the one that really lets you specifically have a lot of agency over doing a really hard-hitting ability at certain times. So this is something we used to see maybe back in the old days on Scylla, so she could really make that crush hit even harder. So I'm really interested to see what types of gods, now that we have a bigger god roster, what types of gods end up picking up an item like this, because it's a really interesting, contrasting, aggressive style with Sands of Time. So we'll see.
Definitely. All right, well, that wraps it up for mid-starter items. Let's move on to the jungle, guys. And the first one that we've got up is Boomba's Dagger. What's going on with this one?
600 gold, 50 health, 50 mana, passive. Your basic attack deals 15 true damage, and your abilities deals 30% damage versus jungle monsters. When a jungle monster is killed, you restore for 10 of your monsters.
Especially with our more aggressive junglers that we added in Season 7.
When a jungle monster is killed, you restore for 10% of your monster's health and 25 mana. Can be upgraded at level 2.
Work on jungle bosses and structures. So you can actually turn your kind of like utility and clearing jungle camps into a more late game effect with some power to support that. Or you can go with Bumba's Hammer, which encourages ability and basic attack weaving, which most assassins do naturally. When you use an ability, your next basic attack is going to do some bonus true damage. And when that bonus true damage hits, your abilities will be reduced all by 1 second. So if you are good at weaving all your abilities in, you can get a lot of benefit out of this, and we'll see if people can really make the most use of this.
For sure. Well, that one was kind of ability focused, but the next one is Eye of the Jungle, and this one is attack speed focused.
650 gold, 10 physical power, 20 magical power,
some characters will leverage the attack
15 HP 5, 20 attack
it has some
speed.
bonus damage to help you slay some jungle monsters.
You deal 30% increased damage to jungle monsters. Upon defeating a large jungle monster, place a ward that lasts for 30 seconds.
Different camps around the map. And also, if you invade, you can ward on their side of the map and see that they actually, if you want to like have the extra level of BM, you
can you buy multiples?
They went to the camp, saw it was taken, and you can see the despair happen. So a lot of control over the jungle is what this item's focused on. And then at level 20, you can turn it into Seer of the Jungle, which is when you slay a large jungle monster, you get the ability to see wards temporarily, so you can provide that utility to your team, especially around Fire Giant. You can kill something, go to Fire Giant, and potentially get rid of a ward without a sentry ward being placed. Or you can get Protector of the Jungle, which means if anyone's fighting you on your turf, the jungle, they're going to have to deal with you having more power and protections for being there.
Pon, this is a support item, not a jungle item.
Nah.
Junglers aren't going to buy wards. Junglers aren't going to buy wards, even if you hide it on a jungle item.
No, they don't buy wards. It automatically places one. It's just free. It's free wards.
There you go.
It's really cool to see you play around wards like this. This is very new. I'm really excited.
For sure. All right. This one is going to be a spicy one for all of our OGs. We're bringing back...
This item is broken as
fuck!
fuck!
Shout out to everybody who knows where that came from. But I'll let Pon take it away for this one.
750 gold, 10 basic attack damage, basic attack, 15 physical protections, 3 damage reduction. Enemy hit by their basic attack are burned, taking 20 physical damage over 2 seconds and have their attack speed reduced by 7%. Jungle monsters take 2.5 the amount of damage. The effect can be stacked up to 4 fucking times. You are fucking high!
I think 2.5x the damage from this. So you can really burn through your jungle objectives really quickly, or when you get
that's only tier 1
that actually burns down your target. But this item doesn't have any sustain, so you got to be really quick with actually killing targets with this. At level 20, you can upgrade it to Mannequin's Mace or Mannequin's Hidden Blade. So Mannequin's Mace is the dot becomes incredibly strong. That does even more damage, as well as does quadruple damage to jungle
50 basic attack damage.
Monsters. So if you want to take down gold very fast, you want to take down
enemy hit by your basic attack, burn taking 60 physical damage over 2 seconds, and have their attack speed slowed by 10%. Jungle monsters or bosses take quadruple damage. The effect can stack up to 4 times.
Hit a target first, you're going to chunk them for a percentage of their health and slow them for a long time. So this is your ability to kind of like jump on a target and surprise them with a lot of burst.
You're fucking high.
For sure. Well, that wraps it up for the jungle starter items. And quick note on these, I believe,
Hidden Blade.
if I'm wrong,
these are call that 75 basic attacks damage.
Yes, because they have a lot of interactions.
Wait, that's from Bluestone? Yeah. Sorry.
Available,
if you have not taken or dealt damage in the last 5 and 5 seconds
All right,
and hit
well,
an
let's
enemy
move on
god,
to
jungle
some of
monster,
the
or jungle
support
boss. They
starter
immediately
items
take
here. We've got
15 of their
Sentinel's Gift
current
up first.
health as basic attack damage and are slow by 20%.
To Watcher's Gift, if you're familiar with that item. So when you get an
Okay,
assist,
Watcher's
you
Gift.
some health and
500 gold.
gold. So
75 health, 7 physical, 7 magical, 7 MP5. Passive being with assist range of minor or jungle camp monster death with dealing the killing blow. Award 7 bonus gold and also restore 12 health and 8 mana. If you are not near an ally god for 20 seconds or more, the passive is disabled. Okay, that's fine.
And provides even more gold. Or you can go to Sentinel's Embrace, which lets you leverage aura protections in a unique way. It's 120 protections.
Why tier 2s don't have gold cost?
60, but if you're with another person, you give that person 60 as well. If you're around 3 people, you're going to split it 4 ways between yourself and all of them. So the 120 will be split evenly between all of them. So you can either spike a single target by being alone with them with a lot of protections, or spread out a pretty considerable amount of protections to your whole team.
Nice.
Do we get it for free?
All right, next up we've got Benevolence, which is going to be kind of a tactical support item, which is cool. What's going on with this one?
Yeah, this one requires you to do a little
750
bit of
gold,
and
75 health, 7 HP 5, 10 MP5,
passive gold and XP, which
gain
sounds
2
scary on paper,
GP
but a portion of all
5 and 1 XP 5 plus 0.5 per level. Anytime you would gain experience or gold from enemy dying, you only take 90% and share 10 with nearby ally.
So you can kind of power farm someone in particular. So this kind of encourages you to go lane to lane, powering up whoever you want. And the rotation that
Season 8 gonna be shit show, or we're gonna remove half of these items.
People leverage this item compared to Sentinel's Gift.
Or nerf to the ground.
But at level 17, it can be evolved into Compassion, which will actually absorb a portion of damage from anyone around you that gets hit. So if your teammate's getting spiked by that Kraken, a portion of the Kraken will actually go to you instead of that target. We've seen some people in playtests want to be compassionate, realize that they're getting blown up very, very quickly for absorbing damage for their team, and suddenly they don't want to be as compassionate. So
for sure,
it's very. I'm curious to see what character will make use of this, as well as Animosity, which just completely takes this more support-focused item and turns it on its head. Your basic attacks are going to deal extra damage based off your maximum health. So if you have a
4%,
basic attacks are going to chunk. And they're going to deal
that's magical damage.
Of that percent health.
This effect is double it against structures.
Rather than trying to zone, you can actually take down that Phoenix kind of on your
Guardians
own.
killing fucking carries on fucking cooldown.
Unique effects here, and what we've
Who's
been
got
seeing a lot in our
basic attacks? Fafnir breath in ulti.
A lot of ways to get that pressure,
Jar,
especially in the early game.
What else?
But Benevolence.
I can't think that fast.
Your team or your duo lane being a little higher level, so it's really like, do you want to go all in on the early game, or do you want to take a little bit of investment strategy?
Dude.
And it's we've seen
Are
both
you
be really
fucking
successful,
high?
So I'm really interested to see. I'm feeling that pro players are really going to gravitate towards the Benevolence tree instead of the Sentinel's Gift tree. But I'm interested to see how the player base as a whole reacts to these. But we still have one more support tree to introduce.
I know.
Support's killing everyone.
War Flag, which is going to be the last one kind of in this supports group.
700 gold, 10 physical power, 20 magical power, 1 health, 100 health, 10 MP5. Passive. Being in range of minion or jungle camp death without dealing the killing blow, restore 6 health and 6 mana to all allies with 55 units, and also provides allies with a stack of self buff of 10%. 1 movement speed and 2 attack speed, last 8 seconds, and stacks up to 10 times.
You can upgrade this to War Banner, which will actually just amp up all the effects, more health restored to everyone, more
I'm not gonna
speed,
read
more attack
the second
speed.
tiers.
Or you can go with Spartan's
It's too
Flag,
much.
which makes you kind of the shot caller of here's where we go. You can, when you damage an enemy, you'll drop a Spartan Flag at that location, and that location has an aura that will provide power to all allies who stand near it. And the duration of the Spartan Flag and the internal cooldown of the item is the same, so you can only ever have one at a time. But you get to basically be like, we're fighting here, stand here to get some power.
Wait for the next item.
All right, well that wraps it up for support, but we've got one more, which is kind of just like a neutral starter item that could be good for, you know, no matter what role or class that you're playing. And that one's going to be Tainted Steel.
750 gold, 10 physical power, 15 magical power, 15 magical protection, 15 physical. Passive. Enemy gods that you hit have their healing taken reduced by 20% for 6 seconds. That's only tier 1.
And when you hit targets with abilities, you apply a kind of minor anti-heal to them. So pretty straightforward starter. The upgrades change things a little bit more. Tainted Breastplate is when your enemies are hit by your damage abilities, they have your healing reduced by a more significant amount. So this can help synergize with other.
That's the tier 2 of one of the items.
Amulet,
that's fascinating. Enemy gods that you hit have their healing taken reduced by 50% for 6 seconds.
All right. Well, speaking of healing, we've got our next balance section here. We've got some new healing rules that are going to be coming in Season 8. And I know healing has been the talk of the town for the last few weeks on social media, Twitter, Reddit, everywhere. And we've been seeing all the conversation that have been going on.
Titans double that passive. Enemy gods that you hit have their healing taken reduced by 20% for 6 seconds. You are healed for 100% of their healing reduced.
For many years. The rules of anti-healing and the gods that are strong healers and their balance back and forth between them is something that's a big part of our balance initiatives. Now, what we've seen recently is healing gods being higher in the meta than ever before, really. And what's interesting about this is that healers have always been really, really good in Smite. Like, we've kind of have definitive data to show this, that their win rates have always been high. Now their play counts are as high to match that, and that's been rising over the end of Season 7. So now healing, so for a long time healing was always strong, but a lot of people did not perceive it as all that strong. People see our anti-heal items in the game, they see how strong they are, and a lot of people are taking that at face value, and they're looking at the anti-heal items and they're going, okay, this is really strong, so healing is balanced. But in reality, healing was still really strong all this time. And now that the players are starting to learn this, and the design team and the pro players and the players out there are all starting to become aligned and seeing that healing is just very powerful on its own, that's why we're taking this time, the beginning of a season, it's the best time to do something like this, to implement a completely new rule to healing that has some pretty big effects on it. And I think Ponpon's going to walk us through the exact
item changes as well. Oh my fucking god.
So, starting in Season 8 of Smite, in every single game mode, there will be a kind of global anti-heal applied to gods that are not fighting other gods. We've termed this as brawling, because it's not quite out of combat, but this is largely focused to what people would generally call out-of-combat healing. If you haven't taken damage or CC'd an enemy god, or haven't been damaged or CC'd by an enemy god within the last few seconds, your healing will actually be reduced, so that when you're trying to like quickly sustain behind like a camp, sustain off a camp, potentially, you can't get quite as much health back to make sure out of combat healing isn't too strong. But when you are directly,
that's why we have new items.
At full strength.
Just do basic attacks and you're gonna heal more than fucking healers with their abilities.
That's not God combat, it doesn't count. So that's really the goal here, is to make sure that when you're fighting healing, I think most people would.
Okay, that's good. That's really good. I agree with that.
Each other, because you have chances to counterplay with anti-heal. They can try and juke that anti-heal, but out of combat healing feels particularly frustrating. Yeah. So that's what this changes. We're also pairing this with a few reductions to the anti-heal items across the board, mostly in duration and a slight hit to their effectiveness. Because if healers are going to be globally weaker when healing out of combat, we need to make sure that their strength feels good in combat. Even
okay. Yeah, that's fair.
So they'll still definitely be strong. Right. I think across the board, it's generally about 5% off each of these items, as well as 3 seconds off the duration.
Of course, tank, shadow
so mostly to make sure that it lines
up that's 5% is not much. They're gonna heal nothing. So yeah, that's really good. I'll agree with it.
There's a lot of global changes here with the goal of reducing frustration with out of combat healing, making sure healing feels rewarding in combat, and bring healers overall more into line with their perceived strength as kind of this +1 that they bring to a team that's unique to them.
All right.
Yeah. And kind of the last piece of this puzzle is just the couple items that do have kind of combat-focused healing tech. We're doing some shifts to those. Stuff like Rod of Healing, Rod of Asclepius, and Caduceus Shield. Just making sure, now that we have new kind of rules for combat healing and brawling healing, just getting rid of those redundancies, right?
Yeah, so now it's just a passive boost to your healing, because the kind of in combat, out of combat, while fighting, while not fighting is now generally handled by the global aura versus needing to be on that particular item.
Why it's not in PTS? Patches.
Big healing nerfs out of combat, some small healing buffs in combat, what we expect to be a net nerf on healing. And this applies to what specific types of healing does this apply to, Ponpon, just for clarity's sake?
So this focuses on lifesteal and ability healing. It does not impact potions. It does not impact item healing, because those items often have very particular purposes for why they're providing that healing. But God abilities and God lifesteal will be effective.
That's good. That's good.
For sure.
Okay.
All right. Well, those were kind
None
of
of the
big
fucking healers.
pillars, a big two things for balance. So let's go ahead and move right into like traditional item and god balance for 8.1. And we'll start it off with some consumables here. We've got some buffs to Elixir of Power and Elixir of Defense. Elixir of Power is now going to provide 10% penetration, and Elixir of Defense is going to provide 5% damage mitigation and 20% CCR.
Yeah,
you most of the time already
casting
on CCR, so
yeah, this kind of came out as a result of the new starter items. Really, is that we now have 3 capable
winning teams should be win faster.
Needing to upgrade your starter
if they are ahead and you can't engage, now we're gonna be that's really good.
There's some weird.
Fuck this fucking speed buff. I'm rushing to speed potion. I'm rushing to elixir.
Get some extra percent pen, because that will help kind of fit.
That's what's gonna happen. Boots staying, getting an elixir instead.
To build the defensive one, it felt a little bit lackluster comparatively, and that flat damage mitigation in CCR.
Next nerf is bullshit.
All right, we got one relic change for 8.1. Shield of Thorns going to be seeing a nerf here. We're going to be decreasing the damage reflect and decreasing the cap of damage taken, and that's going to be for both the base and the upgraded version.
So how many Thorns discussions have we had recently?
Maybe after nerfs.
It dominates most balance meetings at some
No,
point.
yeah.
This item is very polarizing. Some people
ADC is already really strong, and now they're making them even stronger.
Others think it's completely useless. The truth is that this item has an interesting place in the game. We think this item can be frustrating when people are using it, really well, but it comes with proper usage, right? It's very possible to use Thorns right as a fight is disengaging and get very little value out of it. Just like it's just as easy to get scared and use your bees.
Okay, then
really
bring back
right?
Nemean Lion.
It's on a long cooldown, so it feels like a fair effect to exist in the game.
Nobody builds
but
this
we wanted
Nemean
to make
Lion.
sure that it had a reasonable top end when used properly.
Old Nemean Lion,
so right
then
now,
you reflect basic
really
attacks.
well,
Give me
especially
that.
in the pro setting, which is where a lot of our feedback is coming from.
Or
it
any
does
other
create
item.
a situation where
Which
there's not a lot of
you're getting basic attack, you're like
very, very
reflecting percent damage back to them.
So what we're doing is just taking down the total caps. The
if you
maximum amount of damage that it could output is coming down on both the regular version and the upgrade to make sure that even when used properly, this isn't as devastating.
All right, well, we're going to move right along to some tank items here. And first up, we
this
have
is pre-recorded.
seeing a shift here. It's now going to build off of Adventurer's Blade. We're taking away the attack speed, but it's now going to provide 30 physical protections, and we're increasing the attack speed aura on it.
Yeah, so one big change here is the Adventurer's Blade is
that's better. I think that's better.
Toxic Blade will be on its own on the right, as well as Witch Blade, Winged Blade, and Relic Dagger will all be kind of in their own trio.
I think that's
Witch
better.
Blade is going to provide the
instead
physical
of attack speed.
tree,
Of course, it's a direct nerf to other gods, but
full health. But Witch Blade is just one of those items that really existed in this weird hybrid space of some characters really couldn't leverage the attack speed well, but really wanted to
that's good.
The attack speed reduction. So now it's going to be more focused as being a
because you wanted to build it on Guardian, it's feeling weird because you're getting attack speed which you don't need.
So now it provides physical protection, as well as the aura is going to be more intense to really help with that utility.
All right, next up, we've got another change to the blade tree here. We've got Winged Blade up next. We're going to be decreasing the health on Winged Blade, but this one is going to provide 30 magical protections.
As a tank player, I'm so happy with this
gonna be
decision.
even
We got
more
the
broken.
The blade tree actually feeling like real support items now that they're giving different types of
What
protections.
fucking speed tier?
It's
Every
so nice
fucking
the way we're
warrior
able to
gonna
work
be
out
speed
magical
as
on
fuck
one,
and
physical on
have
the other,
big
health on
tanky.
that one, and then an aggressive item. This is just such a fun tree.
What?
So Winged Blade provides a really powerful passive, but it hasn't been super popular in a while. We wanted to make sure we gave it a little bit of a shift because its stats
Speed
are
tier
pretty
is broken.
powerful. Now you're gonna
What
get that
else?
new magical protections because the magical gods.
Everyone gonna build this fucking item. Guardians, warriors mainly,
Obviously,
not because
this
we
item can
need
still be
damage
good
dealers.
when you're against physical gods, but now you're going to be able to actually get protections.
Everyone
along
gonna
with
be
this
speed as
amazing
fuck.
Anti-slow stats.
For sure. All right, next up and last for the blade tree, we got Relic Dagger.
That's
so
fine.
We're increasing the health on this item, and it's now going to provide 10% crowd control reduction.
That's fine.
Yeah, this is an interesting item we've seen some pro players especially use to great effect, but it generally is more still on the outskirts of a lot of builds. So we thought it had some room to go up. This is now the health item versus the physical or magical protection item, going to 350 health, as well as getting some crowd control reduction to make sure that you can actually be in the front line for your team. And if you get a CC, you can mitigate a little bit of that off.
For sure. All right, next up, we've got Emperor's Armor. Small buff here. We're just increasing the physical protection by 10.
Now this is a good item, but not a great item.
Yeah,
and it also has a very unique passive that is very tactical. It's very situational.
Yeah.
So Emperor's Armor was kind of contrasting.
That's not going to change
other,
anything.
Males in its tree, but now it's got more even physical protections.
You just build a fucking defense on a movement speed.
Which one you want based off of the situation, not just the stats.
All right, and then last up for tank items here, Talisman of Energy going to be seeing a buff. It's now going to provide maximum
speed fucking tier,
God, death, or assist.
Speed fucking tier.
Yeah, this is a buff that comes from our Olympians.
All I can see with these fucking free 4 item changes, speed fucking
has a really
tier.
strong effect, but it's really difficult to leverage in Conquest when you're.
And I'm building Stonecutting Sword after. Oh,
so
but now you're not gonna build that.
Maybe you do. Gets a kill, they get to feel the full effect of this item and really get to chase down that fight pretty aggressively.
This is gonna be strong.
For sure, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to some assassin items here. Jotun's Wrath going to be getting a buff here, and we are increasing the physical power by 10.
The Jotun's buff, it's finally happening.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's been a lot of discussion on this item.
They need it.
Some people
Jotun's
even going
needed
as far as
that.
to say that it should have a whole passive in addition to it. We think that's a bit extreme. The 20% CDR is still a pretty powerful defining feature of the item. However, we are aware of the fact that it's fallen a little out of favor and is starting to feel a little undertuned. We are just giving it a power bump to make sure that those assassins who really care about that burst damage and cooldown reduction, they still have their go-to old reliable item.
Middle ADC not gonna be able to survive in the more jungle rotation.
All right, next up we've got Stonecutting Sword.
If you don't have ADC, you're
we
dead.
are decreasing the cost.
Yep, Stonecutting Sword is a pretty powerful in-hand item, but a lot of the in-hand characters have seen adjustments over the years. While the items
You
have
buffed
also seen adjustments over this year.
Auto attack speed warriors with new starters, and you're giving
the attack speed on its own.
less
So we just want
cost
to make sure that when people
Stonecutting.
are building this item in those types of builds,
I think
it's
you know
cheap
what's
enough
gonna
to really
happen.
flex in there so you can
After
get
boots,
the
we're
other
gonna build
items,
Stonecutting.
that support
Attack
more
speed
aggressively.
boots and Stonecutting Sword.
All right, next up we got Berserker Shield. We're going to be seeing a little bit of a shift here. We're going to be decreasing the physical protection, but increasing the power, both the base power and the power from the passive.
Pawn, you trying to troll me? Put in Berserker Shield in the assassin items section? No, he's not.
Yep.
Warriors
Intentional shift.
gonna kill
Trying to find some
everyone
hybrid
below
items
the
and shift
Osiris
them more
Erlang.
towards the aggressive side. Right now we have the
Holy
hammer tree and we have a lot of other things coming
Wamana
up
in
for
his
solo leaders
ultimate.
and warriors, and we wanted to also make sure that assassins had some interesting item choices, and the game was starting to feel like the hybrid items were leaning a little bit too heavily on the
Holy
tank side
shit.
in a couple places. So we're going to be making this key change to Berserker Shield, and I'm also setting up here Pon for the next change, which is going to have
You
a
don't
little bit
need
of a
Frostbound.
similar idea applied in the magical shield.
You're just gonna fucking
and these
rush
are
them
still gonna
down.
be kind of hybrid items, but these
3-4
are gonna be
auto attacks,
more
they're gonna be
reasonable,
dead. The
aggressive
carry
options
ones.
that assassins can
I'm talking about
choose to
Mage's
opt into in
ADCs.
certain scenarios.
And maybe jungle.
Yep.
The jungle's
So
gonna
we'll
be
move right
fast.
along to
We'll
Warded
see.
Shield up next. We're going to be decreasing the cost on that, but also decreasing the magical protection.
Yep, so
Okay.
Warded Shield, that tree is going to see further adjustment with the next item, Ancile, to make this make a bit more sense, but mostly this is it was very expensive for the defense, for the amount of defense it provided, so we're bringing that down, but we're also setting up the magical protections to be in line with our general tree
Wait for the
upgrades,
next one.
making sure their stats are always upgrading when you go to a tier 3.
For sure. All right, let's talk about Ancile. We're going to be decreasing the magical protection on that and increasing the physical power.
By
This
20.
is a true shift right here.
Yeah.
You know,
By
just
fucking
getting rid of the protections
20.
and increasing the power. This is a really cool item, and for a while it was pretty popular, and it's
Solo
still has
laner's
some
gonna
really
box
strong
every,
advantages,
each
and
time till
we
death.
really want this item built more on aggressive characters. When tanky characters were diving in and getting extra CC, that is a little bit more of a balance concern for us, so we wanted to move this more towards aggression as well as giving assassins a few more choices.
Cool. All right,
Fucking
last up
assassins,
for
I'm talking
assassins,
about
Serrated
solo.
Edge going to be seeing a buff/shift here. It's now going to provide 10 physical power per stack, but will no longer provide 10 basic attack power per stack.
Yeah, the goal of this buff is mostly to open it up towards more assassins versus just enhanced
more
assassins.
ability based
So
now
provide physical power per
than.
stack. This makes other characters
So you need to do
want to use it if they can like dump their abilities in the
ability lifesteal
power
then.
stem. But just opening up the cast that can use it, we saw after a round of balance changes to this one, it kind of fell out of favor. So making sure
don't
that
know about
other characters
that.
can make use of it is a goal for this change.
I don't know about this one.
All right, we've got mage items up next. Celestial Legion Helm up first. We're going to be increasing the magical power.
But still,
Yeah,
that
another item that's
doesn't
kind of a
change
hybrid
anything.
item, maybe even a tank item that we're moving a little bit more towards the aggressive direction. This item allows you to build up a lot of physical protections, which is a great anti-ganking item, but it really did not have the power that made it very attractive. A lot of mid laners just didn't feel like it was worth it, so we're giving it that little bump to make it feel like a real actual hybrid option for mages.
They're gonna need that to build that
Spear
because
of
unless we're
Desolations
gonna
is a
get
fun
one-shotted.
Now going to decrease
true,
your
actually.
ultimate ability cooldown by 8 seconds on getting a kill. Plus, in addition to what you're already doing.
Hera
Yeah,
calling Argus on cooldown. 20 seconds, 20 seconds, Argus, 20 seconds, Argus.
It was either okay-ish or not really usable because it didn't really help you get.
We
into
have
the fight.
a
So
clip,
you kind of
I think,
default
from
to Spear of
Twitch,
Nagash,
not
right,
mine,
just straight
but
up
one guy
utility.
just
Spear
built
of
cooldown,
Desolation,
full
getting this
cooldown,
ultimate cooldown reduction
and
can
was
be really
auto-attacking
interesting on certain characters that have lower
God,
cooldown
no, in
ultimates,
team fights, you know.
or it just sets you up
It
for
already
the
was
fight after the
25
fight
or
when
26
you win a fire
seconds
giant fight.
to
You can
get
siege
back
the
the
fight and have your
Argus.
ultimate up a little
I'm
bit
telling you,
earlier.
25 second Argus is coming.
For sure. All right, next up,
You're gonna
in the
fucking
Pin Tree,
enjoy it.
Obsidian Shard, increasing the magical power on this one.
And as you're seeing here, we're doing a lot of shifts with mage penetration items, and there's going to be a few more of those coming up too. What we want is to make sure that all
That's
of the
not changing
penetration items
anything.
in the mage that the mages have available to them are all looking like viable options. We've seen Divine Ruin really rise to the top this year with the healing changes as well as the buffs to the other items. We expect them to have a lot more even
That's not
footing.
gonna change anything.
Obsidian Shard already provides a lot of penetration, and that's great, and we're pretty happy with how
There
its
is
passive is
other
working.
items already.
We just wanted to give it
so.
that little extra power bump.
Cool. Speaking of a little extra power bump, we're going to be doing the same thing to Polynomicon, just bumping up the magical power by 10.
By 10 is not much.
Bump it up power by 10,
That's fine.
and also this does increase its proc a little bit more by a small amount, but just making sure that this item felt good to build.
All right.
That's fine.
Another one in the book tree, Soul Reaver up next. Going to be seeing a shift. It's no longer going to provide your 10% magical penetration. We're decreasing the cost, though, and we're going to be increasing the health damage at maximum strength up to 9%.
Pawn, why don't you go ahead and take these next two that are very tied together?
Yeah, so the
That's
next two
fine.
changes are very closely related.
Pen is gonna
One
hurt,
piece of feedback we
actually.
got with the initial
Removing pen
changes
is
to
gonna
magical
hurt.
penetration was that Soul Reaver felt kind of like a double dip really heavily. It was not only getting the percent pen that was good against tanks, but also the passive that was good against tanks. And so we're going to remove the kind of double dipping that it had and more focus on its core strength, which is dealing percent health damage to targets, making sure that feels good. Without the penetration, we feel like these are going to be roughly equivalent stat shifts to really focus on an anti-tank direction. And then the next one that's coming up is going to be where we add the 10% back because we want to make sure there are a breadth of options available.
For sure. So we are adding that 10% magical penetration to Rod of Tahuti, and I will let Pawn take it away.
Yeah, Rod of Tahuti is the very high power option for
Again,
mages, and now
it's
a
gonna
little
be
bit more
built
desirable with the penetration.
as 5th,
We
6th,
talked quite a bit
even
internally
maybe
about
4th
should
item.
this one get 10% and have a nerf
Because
applied to it, or any
Rod
other
was
changes applied to
only
it?
not building
And
because of
we
pen.
overall went with it could probably survive just the 10% penetration utility. Its passive is relatively strong, but it is very situational to use, and you're foregoing other potentially very powerful passives like Ethereal Staff is a pretty common one that we were discussing.
But can you build multiple
So
starters?
we feel like Rod Tahuti can use this penetration, and we're going to be excited to see how mage players fit this very expensive item into their build.
Definitely. All right, Cursed Orb up next. Going to be seeing a nerf here. We're going to be decreasing the movement speed and the stat count.
Finally.
But we're increasing the power per stat
Fucking
from 3 to 4.
finally.
15
Poseidon
to 16 total.
unfucking catchable.
So really what this does is create a bit of a shift, but we're nerfing the movement speed mostly. We made an inverse adjustment to the magical power to make it about the same as before, but the movement speed is being lost, and that's what's going to be played into the next change on Doomorb as well.
Poseidon or
So
outrunning
we're gonna
one
be
U ult.
movement
Just
speed by
just
2%
outrunning.
from 6 to 4.
Right.
No sprint, no
So
nothing.
Doomorb is this Doomorb rush is starting to be a mage meta that we're seeing a lot of. And on a new map, on a bigger map, on a wider map, we know that's going to get even more popular. So we've already been seeing it
Not
on the
even
rise in
outrunning,
Season 7.
even faster
we wanted
than
to make
when you
sure we
ulted.
gave it a little touch downward before Season 8. We were planning on doing this for Season 8 anyway, but even if we didn't see it too much in Season 7, but I'm glad
so
we
we
did,
only
so
nerfing
feel
tier
like the
2,
nerf makes more
tier
sense,
3
but
staying same?
this is
Okay,
going to be,
that
I
doesn't
think,
change.
still a
That
very strong
doesn't change
strategy
anything.
for
You're
the
still
map,
gonna rush
so
2
we're going
more.
to be keeping a close eye on it.
Definitely. All right, let's move on to some warrior items up next. Shifter Shield, one of my favorite items here. Going to be increasing the physical protection and increasing the protections gained while under 75% health and decreasing the cost.
Yeah, so kind of the reverse of what we saw with Assassins. This was an item that was kind of in the bruiser category where it gave you some power and some protections. But we're going to shift it more towards tanks that they have access to this item. It's going to have some more upfront protections, and it's going to get a little bit extra boost in the protections you get when you're below 75% health, just to make it more kind of like interesting for the warriors who want to be a bit more offensive to build into. And the cost is coming down because it was also pricey for the stats it was providing in general.
Yeah.
Right. Frostbound Hammer up next, another fun item.
Really?
Going to be increasing the physical power and increasing the attack speed reduction on the item.
A Frostbound Hammer buff. How long has it been? This item has
does it still provide
really
movement speed
out of
slow?
favor over the years, and we wanted to be careful to not buff the slow. We know that that is the risky spot, but this item's stats are a little underwhelming, and we thought its counter potential could be better. So as a possible alternative to
movement speed slow, it's still in there.
Fast attacking assassins or hunters. Now the Frostbound Hammer is actually going to have stronger attack speed reduction, which I think is really great. It makes this item a lot more interesting, gives you a lot more different choices to make
power,
when you want to buy it,
attack speed reduction, movement speed reduction. Bellona, Osiris, Erlang main items. Main fucking Vamana. Holy fucking
health,
shit.
But decreasing the power, but increasing the passive damage increase.
That's still trash.
Yeah, so you'll see another hammer after this as well, which
that's
is
still
the
trash.
Making sure all the
there is much better items right now to build than this fucking item. Any fucking god now can build Frostbound Hammer. Of course, physical god, but yeah.
Losing some power, but for the high base damage that a lot of warriors provide,
just slow them. Reduce their attack speed.
So assassins who want that bonus damage will have to contend with the 10 power reduction. But warriors who don't really build as much power, that bonus passive damage increase is going to help them out a lot.
Cool. All right, and the last up in the hammer tree, the sledge, everyone's favorite item of Season 7. Going to be seeing a straight-up nerf here, decreasing the health
50
and
health and 2 protections.
The item with the best.
It's still 40 power and 20.
Does have to get nerfed.
Does it give CCR?
The sledge
I think it does.
is kind of the cornerstone.
It's meant to CCR, right?
Changes. We know that this item was strong, but we also had a lot of concerns about warriors and warriors and solo still being good across the game. And role balance is really important to us. Even if there's an item that's overpurchased, that's okay as long as the overall game feels good. We're taking this opportunity to fix that, bringing down the sledge's power, just straight up giving it a nerf, which it needs, and then kind of redistributing that power elsewhere into the Runeforged and Frostbound and some of these other changes.
But not that. No, still.
Right, and last up
actually, there's a lot of new items.
Going to be seeing a nerf to the movement speed from the passive by 10%.
I never was building this item, even on speed tier.
This is one of those changes that
I didn't build that.
Movement speed.
It's a lot of movement.
But no, who the hell was able to build that?
This item was one of those items that
on Hercules, on Hercules it was good, but yeah, it's you're just don't getting any protections. People can rush you down.
I just want to take some of the edge off that item to make sure that it was more in line with the
not much people was building that, so
be kind of getting buffed in with the new map being bigger.
All right, well that wraps it up for tank items. Let's move on to hunter items, and we've got an all-new one up next. Let's talk about Dominance. Going to be coming in Season 8. It's going to be building off of Charged Morningstar, providing power, mana, and MP5, 10% physical penetration, and a passive. Your basic attacks will now benefit from an additional 10% physical penetration. Pon, what's going on with this new item?
From an additional?
Yeah, so this is another start of a penetration shift, similar to what we saw in Mages, just taking the feedback that we've gotten from our last round of physical penetration changes and kind of addressing concerns.
But
mostly Atalantis build
and basic
attack
had
really dictated a lot of builds throughout the year, so we wanted to create a new item that provided a similar power
Then is only
without so many
basic
synergy
attack.
stats, and then adjust accordingly.
This
so
is
dominance is
more
that new item.
the
It's going to be
stats.
on,
It's more like
penetration for basic attackers.
skill based.
So if you get
I
a lot
would
of your damage
say
output from base attacks like a hunter,
skill based
into it. And
hunters.
this also gives an interesting
But
new
that
upgrade path from
passive,
tier 2
I don't know
Understart,
about this
if
one.
they still want to go that after seeing all the starter
Don't know.
items.
Atlanta's both
For
still
sure.
better.
All right. Since we're kind of talking about this
Yeah.
penetration shift, I'll stick with you, Pon.
Because
Let's
it's
talk
giving me
about
attack speed.
Atalanta's bow up
Oh.
next. We're going to be decreasing the physical penetration percentage and decreasing the cost on the item.
Yep. So this is just going to be an adjustment.
This
to
item
from being the
mainly
20%
bought
option.
because
It's gonna be
of
more
passive.
fit by dominance now.
Attack speed
and then adjust
and
the cost
power.
accordingly. It's still a good amount of penetration, attack speed, a strong passive, but it's not going to be so build defining as it has been throughout the year.
All right, and then
You're
last up,
fucking
I'll throw it
high.
to you again, Pon. The Executioner, which kind of is under the penetration tree here, talking about Pin. We're going to be buffing the item, increasing the maximum
X is back.
stat count from 3 to 4.
X is back.
With all these shifts, especially because Atalanta's bow was a very strong
X
percent
is
item,
back.
Executioner did get an adjustment and it largely fell out of favor. We want to make sure that it still has a place, especially with different
Fuck
attack
Atlanta's bow,
penetration
Exy.
existing. So Executioner is just going to get an extra stack, which means you can get up to 28% pen. If you're
And
really
you
hitting
just
that
build
single
another
target
item
or
with
if the front line's really
10%.
right
So
behind you, this is gonna be a
Atlanta's
pretty
bow.
effective tool in your toolbox.
For sure. All right, so we've kind of talked about physical penetration percentage on the hunter items, but let's talk about crit a little bit, AJ. Talk to me about what we're going to be doing for crit on hunter items in Season 8.
So crit is a very interesting stat, very polarizing, and we're going to be making some changes that are going to affect a variety of different crit items here. So
no longer provides
really
crit.
what we feel like we've learned the most over the years is that crit feels really bad in small percentages. It's a very big effect and it's random.
Agree,
That big effect
agree.
with the random chance is what makes
It's
crit
even
fun.
random with
But it
20%.
also can make crit really frustrating when you have like 7% crit chance and you hit your opponent 3 crits. Like people get really frustrated by that. So what we're doing is we're actually going to be making a change to a lot of crit items where the tier 1 and tier 2 items don't have any crit chance on them. So you have to
It
actually
should
go
have
all the
more
way to the tier 3
power
before
than
you get crit
and
chance. And what that lets us do is
yeah,
make sure
they should
that
have
nobody
more
gets
power.
crit in really small increments.
should
You have
give
to
more
buy
power.
a full item to get a reasonable amount of crit, where it's still, you know, it's still going to be interesting because you're not sure when you're
Crit
gonna
is still
get
crit.
but it's not going to be frustrating.
It should
That's
have
also going to let us
should
do
give it
some
more
other
power.
shifts that are just going to be able to make the
From
items
10
better,
to 5, like
because
no.
honestly, crit has fallen out of
5%
favor
crit.
pretty recently
At
for quite
least
a
10
while. So
power.
we're also looking to
At
just
least
buff
10
the tier
power.
4 items in a few ways as well. So we're going to see that soon.
Yeah, for sure. So TLDR, 8
2 power per 1% of
all
critical
getting their
kill
crit
chance.
removed,
That's
but
what
getting
should
a
be.
small little bump to help out. But let's talk about some of the T3 crit items here.
Actually,
And
another
we'll do
items is a little
Rage
bit
up
too
first.
strong,
We're going to
so
be
never mind.
increasing the power and increasing the cost on the item.
Yep. So
Increase
Rage is
physical
one
power
of
from
the kind of
things,
follow-ups from all these changes,
Increase
making
cost
sure
from-
that tier 3s always have upgraded stats from their tier 2 counterpart.
Mainly
the
it's
tier 2
built
got to
because of
25
the
power, so
passive,
now
so-
Rage needs to be bumped up a little bit.
Of
But
course
also
it's
getting
gonna
some
help,
cost to
but-
adjust for that
yeah.
too. Largely, we're expecting Rage's power to remain relatively similar. It's in a pretty good spot.
All right, Deathbringer up next, the big boy crit item. We're going to be increasing the physical power from 40 to 50.
Okay.
Deathbringer is very popular. A lot of people like it. A lot of people enjoy it. It hasn't really been considered meta in a long time.
Yeah.
So we're trying to bring this up just a little bit in its power, so it fits
Not much
better with
people
more
was
builds.
building
It
that.
gives you that power. It's
They
a
just
high
was
cost,
skipping
high power
that.
item, and it really
Now it's
didn't
gonna
quite
help.
feel like it had the stats, the oomph that it should.
All right, let's move on to the Shuriken tree. We've got Shadow Steel Shuriken up next. We're going to be increasing the power and increasing the attack speed.
Yep. So
That's needed.
this is going to be
That's
similar
fucking
with like, all
needed.
the Shurikens.
Wait,
We're all going to get some level of
It's
adjustment
cost.
to
It's
them out,
the
'cause
cost
they
gonna
were
be still the
generally
same.
underperforming. Shadow Steel Shuriken, the anti-heal one.
So
is
now
gonna
you're
get some
just
power and
gonna.
attack speed. There's also changes related to its anti-heal that have been
But
kind of talked about in
yeah,
the anti-heal section.
demon,
so those changes are also in
demon
addition to these.
shuriken
We
or
just
how
wanna
it's called,
separate
it's
them
still
out
got
because
better
they're very
passive.
two
So
different talking points and discussion points.
For sure, yep. Up next in the Shuriken tree, Wind Demon, just getting a straight up crit chance buff by 5%.
Right, this item buffs the user for getting that crit. So this is the
Fuck
high
me, Rage.
crit item in the tree.
go
And,
fucking Wind
we want you to
Demon
make
and
sure
go
that you're able to
fucking
get those
Deathbringer.
Wind Demon procs.
For
Yep,
sure.
and also making sure that there's a passive amount of crit chance on this item so that when
Wind
you do
Demon,
invest in that tier 3 item, you have enough crit chance that the enemy feels
Demon-
fair that when you
Demon
crit
Slayer?
them, right?
Well,
right, just like with
Deathbringer. Fuck my.
Next up for items overall, we've got Poison
Deathbringer
Star.
and
Seeing a little shift.
Jingwei.
We're going to be decreasing the cost and decreasing the poison slow.
This item provides utility uniquely to crit, but its cost was largely prohibitive, and this item has a history of being very
strong. I don't really build that item,
slow,
so
especially
I don't
making
know.
it able to box opponents very effectively. We're going to bring down the cost so people can fit it.
It's good if you like troll playing like ADC support or ADC solo. Then yeah, it's good.
All right, that wraps it up for items. Let's move on to guys.
Finally, nerf Tsuki.
Janus. Going to be seeing some significant changes here, and we're going to go in game and take a look at it. But I'll pass it along to AJ and talk to me about Janus and what's going on.
So Janus is a very interesting god. He has some of the most unique features in the game, and he's always been a huge balance.
He's good. He's good.
We are pretty happy with Janus's design. It's very unique.
Why are we buffing him? He's fucking good already.
And players who are picking up Janus and don't really know what they're doing tend to do pretty poorly as well.
Just fucking learn
we're really
it.
Trying to be careful to not just overbuff this god because we know how powerful he can be in the pro scene.
New player. Oh, I don't get it. What to do?
What?
He gonna play 1 month, 2 months.
Janus has some very strange.
It's the same god 1 week, and he gonna learn it.
Didn't really feel like they needed to exist on the kit. They don't really add to his uniqueness. So what we're doing is making a key change to Portal, where that enemies who have been CC'd by Portal and are falling will be able to be damaged, like other banishes. This is a consistency change, as well as this gives the Janus player a little bit more leniency into how easy or hard it is to hit the combo between Portal and Unstable Vortex. So making that element of the kit a little easier and making it Janus just a better team.
You get in Portal, you're gonna get killed. Jungle, mid laner, you jump into the portal, you're dead. You're legitimately dead.
Unstable Vortex. We're changing the hit area of this ability, and by that I mean we're specifically filling in the middle. We're not changing the outer edges. This ability is still going to hit the same sized area on the outside, but we're removing the negative space. So any space in the middle is going to count as a hit. Whereas the previous Janus had a small, very... What we have pretty much determined is
Janus every game.
Level of space
Janus
to
every fucking game.
It's extremely small and very rare to do.
Fucking
it doesn't
game.
Really feel skillful. It felt lucky. We are still maintaining the double hit in the sweet spots, and we are making significant fixes to the targeter to more accurately affect the area. That's going to make it look like it got a lot bigger, but you have to trust us. We're not making it bigger. The previous targeter was just very rough. It was very vague. There was a lot of area where the targeter wouldn't hit gods, but you actually were hitting gods. And then we had one more Janus change, which is themed around audio clarity, visual feedback. So when the Janus fires his ultimate through space and time, it can be hard to see this. It's coming at you through walls from long distances away.
Oh, because
so what we're doing is
Janus was one-shotting
adding an audio cue
he's still gonna
one-shot everyone. Hear it coming towards
plus
you,
items,
which will give you
item
a chance
passes.
to juke.
So
and we're also adjusting the amount of damage that it can deal. So to avoid this
Hunter just fighting Hunter, getting poked. You ulting. If you hit him, he's
now
still dead.
You won't be able to actually do
that's
have to be
you're never ulting like full HP targets. Thought doing that.
Big changes for Janus across.
How many clips we have thought one-shotting ADCs or mid?
A very light one, just because of the depth we went
full
into
HP, one-shot.
That doesn't really radically
only with his ult.
Style
of course, his free.
State. It's really just cleaning up a lot of rough edges.
Yeah,
that's pre-recorded, by the way.
Guys, now to take a look and see just some of the changes here. So there's the
and it's lagging by fuck.
Upon showing off and driving here. See the new targeter for unstable Vortex.
Okay, that looks good actually.
You see like the little electricity in the center there that actually is counting as a hit.
So you're never gonna miss anymore.
Yep, just showing off all the different targeter shapes. Double hitting still working.
You're not gonna miss anymore.
What changes the you can actually damage them while they're falling.
Yeah, Janus every game. I don't see enough.
Most players probably
healers nerfed.
To wait a little bit closer to when they
everything nerfed. Janus.
And then finally,
main middle,
just
main ban in ranking. Janus.
But
Mark my fucking words.
Being a bit more intense than
people already was picking him.
Players can actually hear that when it approaches them.
He wasn't like broken. He wasn't like
lots of big Janus changes
or
coming
anything.
in, so I'm sure
he was
Clumsy
really
super excited.
in good spot.
He's going to be playing some Janus,
and now we
coming
buffed
up in
him.
season 8. Well, let's move right along and
That's
let's
a
talk
buff.
about some of the meta nerfs that we're looking at here for season 8, and kick it off with Bakasura. Insatiable Hunger. We're going to be decreasing the movement speed.
Baka wasn't
Bakasura
big problem, but with the
dominate
item changes,
in
he's gonna be a
ranked
problem.
queues,
So
right,
yeah,
Papa?
that's a good nerf.
Yeah, we've seen him do pretty good work in the ranked queues. We've seen certain characters, especially like characters with high movement speed, be able to like really box opponents. And so this next series of changes is really focused on characters that we expect that are currently pretty good, that are also going to benefit from the map being larger and having their movement speed. We really debated back and forth how much we wanted to affect characters that had movement speed in their kit before players got to see them, and so we largely just focused on the characters we know are currently performing really well and are very likely to continue performing very well on the new map. So that's going to be Bakasura, Ra, and Poseidon. In Bakasura's case, it's his passive. This is going to be a potential 6% movement speed reduction when he's at full stacks.
For sure, and move right along to Ra here. He's been shining in season 7, so we're going to take that down just a little bit. Speed of light going to be decreased in the movement speed on that.
1%.
I'm sure we could have gotten away with Ra nerf, whether or not the map movement speed was going to be in his advantage in the next season.
It's still fucking good.
The god is doing very well, so.
Doesn't change
as
anything.
Pon mentioned, we're trying to look at only the gods who are already doing really well and the ones we expect to get even better in the next map that are being nerfed. Specifically, Ra's movement speed, we've given the god a lot more additional damage and utility. He's also going to be heavily affected by the healing changes, which we want to call out here. So
that
maybe you
doesn't
expected
change
more Ra nerfs.
anything.
Don't be disappointed.
Warriors getting faster.
Hunter
stuff.
So kind of
Jungles,
a big deal for him too.
did they get
just a small
faster?
movement speed nerf in addition to those.
No, it didn't. So Warriors gonna run down middles.
Right, and then
now.
last up that we were talking about here in this group, Poseidon.
What's gonna
Changing
happen?
Tide is going to be decreasing
Middle
the
ADC
movement
gonna
speed
get
on
run
that.
down.
Yep, and this
Viper-
one might be a little
okay,
bit
that's
bigger than
big.
Ra,
That's-
which might
that's
seem a little
big.
strange, but this is one character that had access to that 50% movement speed basically at the start of the
It's
game.
not much, but it's
where
gonna
Ra
help
couldn't really
because
maintain his passive at the start
main
of the
movement
game.
speed
So
was
just
on
a
his
little
two.
bit larger hit to make sure that Poseidon.
People
his
was
ability to
maxing
really
3,
rotate
2,
and
when
outmaneuver
only
his
1.
mid-lane opponents feels a bit more fair.
All right, moving right along. We've got Agni up next, and we're going to be making a change to Combustion, the passive. Basic attacking a god now provides 2 stacks.
This is a theme we've gone through in a few different gods.
I mean, it's good,
even
but
items like
it's
Talisman
not that
of Energy
big of a
today.
buff.
We want to make sure that these items that play off of
Because you
minion waves
can miss
can
the
still
god,
be
and I'm just
useful
gonna
in
better
teamfight
hit the
scenarios.
creep if
Agni
it's
had the same
inside.
issue. It was very hard to stack his passive in just teamfight scenarios. So now the Agnis that mix in some basic attacks in between their abilities and are able to get some little bit of poke are going to be able to stack that combustion, get those extra dot damage, and just be more effective Agni players, which we're really excited about.
Definitely, definitely. All right, next up, Chernobog going to be seeing a buff here. Vicious Barrage. We're going to be increasing the attack speed and decreasing the mana cost.
Yeah, this ability
20%
double scaled.
at level 1?
So 3 seconds to 5. It probably didn't need to scale as intensely in both directions. So we're making sure that the rank feels a bit stronger if it's only going to be 3 seconds of duration. It's going to be a 40% speed stem and scaling up to the same 60% that you're familiar with. And in addition, this item
40% is too much. It's too fucking much.
So you want to make sure that that isn't too mana intensive.
He's just gonna rush you down at level 2. Even at level 1, just fucking build that because it's piercing attack as well.
Now going to provide power to allies that have been healed.
Yeah,
5% per level.
Passive is already a little bit sleeper because it's a little bit of sustain that can be really good.
Yeah.
But he has this ability power theme, and he
Magical
also has this
power
kind of
boost.
like additional.
I mean, it's
team
good. So
utility
Chiron
theme, like he can cleanse allies as a hunter.
support
So this is just a really
coming?
cool little addition we're adding to his passive.
I think
to
Chiron support
help
is gonna
Chiron
be
get
a
a little
thing.
ability power boost or his allies. And
Chiron
this passive,
support is
even though
gonna
I
be a
said- I
thing.
said it was a little bit
Healing,
sleepy,
power
most
gain,
players consider Chiron
cleanse,
passive to be pretty
knockup,
unexciting. So we wanted to
slow,
give him something that was a little bit more interesting. And had a
death
little bit more
immune if you're
potential.
getting a
And,
kill.
I'm really excited to play this because I love playing the Horseman already. So I know I'm going to be running him in Season 8.
Yeah,
Definitely. All right,
I'm
next
seeing
up on the buff
Chiron
list, we
support.
got Chronos. We're going to be increasing the attack speed per level, and then stop time. Going to be increasing the power scaling.
Yeah, so Mage ADC has had a very interesting history in Season 7. Mostly with a lot of different items and adjustments. We looked at Kronos and Soul in particular, and they seem like characters that could use buffs.
It's 0.7, so it's quite a lot,
after seeing how everything's
actually.
kind of like resolved, we think Kronos and Soul could still use those buffs, and so you'll see a very similar series of changes on Soul later on. But Kronos getting that attack speed per level and getting a little bit extra scaling on stop time.
But I don't know. Right, I am not playing Mages ADC, so I can't tell anything.
Tanuki has been out on the battleground hustling folks, so a little bit of a nerf here.
I don't know. I only played him today for first time, 2 games. That's it, and it was dual
gold. We're going to be decreasing the base damage and the damage from subsequent hits.
Yeah, we are absolutely thrilled with this God launch. I think he's super fun and interesting, and as tends to happen with new God launches, he's a little bit on the powerful side. We're toning down his key poke damage as well as the free power he's getting from his
Can't
passive.
tell anything about this one. I only played
so
him 2 times.
That adds up really in the end when you're playing a hunter. I'm really
And it
excited to see how Danzburg
duo.
gets played throughout the next year and how it gets affected by the new
I
map.
don't
And
know.
as he hasn't had his real chance for a lot of pro play yet, I'm excited to see if he stays a major contender throughout the year or not. So we'll definitely be keeping a close eye on him, but he needs a little downward adjustment in this first update since his launch, so that's a good thing to get to.
All right, Fenrir up next. Unchained, we're going to be increasing the physical power scaling, and then Seething Howl is going to immediately generate 2 Unbound Runes upon cast. And then Brutalize, last but not least, we're going to be increasing the AoE damage.
Fenrir support back as well.
Fenrir is just getting some...
Fenrir support is back. Fenrir support is back. Give me that.
Getting some extra utility to generate
I was still playing him in support role.
Really get to that 5-rune threshold to get their bonus effect.
Fenrir support is
There's a lot
back.
of interesting ways that you can use this, especially like going from jungle clear to lane.
Plus that new items.
Being able to actually generate the stun.
Oh, baby.
Gimme.
Gimme.
AoE damage not only help on clear, but help really make
Fenrir
it a
support
ability
is
that you
back.
want to cast, even if maybe basic attacking canceling might be a little bit quicker DPS. Spreading that damage out on the
It's
whole and so you
back.
can get in there and find
It's
an
back, it's
opportunity
back, it's back.
can be quite valuable. So we want to make sure that strength is very highlighted.
For sure. All right, next up, we've got Hachiman seeing a buff and a fix here. Eagle Eye, we're going to be decreasing the cooldown. And then Mounted Archery, we fixed an issue where Hachiman could fire other abilities while exiting the ultimate.
His
Normally
dash.
we list bug fixes in their own section, but this is going to have balance implications, and we also will be looking into
You know
making the same
when
fix on
Hachiman
Rama,
ulti
which
gonna
we'll get to in a
finish, you
moment.
throwing like
This
let's
maybe
say
should be listed
Vulcan
as a shift
ulti
because of that, because
to
this
reach
is a
him to kill him,
potentially large
and he's
nerf.
just dashing out
Players
without
who are
animation.
especially adept at Hachiman were able to quickly dash and use other abilities out of exiting their ult, which would cause some strange animation things. It was didn't really it
No
didn't look
animation,
intended.
just
It was
moving
obvious
forward.
That was not our goal. So
Blinking.
we're adding a little bit of additional post fire at the time there to make sure that he has to actually
That's
land,
good.
reset his animations, and dash.
He
so you
wasn't
can actually
strong, but
see what he's doing.
that change is good.
That's going to be a potentially large nerf. He's also getting a small buff along with that with the Eagle Eye ability.
Doesn't
We were
care.
terrified about this ability when we were first designing
Don't
it.
care.
The idea of basic attacks hitting far away, but we've realized that basic attacks that are far away are pretty jukeable, right? So there's a lot of things that opponents can do to counterplay this. So we're just buffing this ability a little bit more in the cooldown, and this gives Hachiman some really cool late game opportunity where you can actually start poking really scarily with this amount of damage. So definitely excited for this shift. This god has always been on the cusp of pro play, so he probably will remain there. He's hard to estimate, honestly. So I'm really curious to see how this plays out.
Definitely. All right, Hercules up next, seeing a buff. Earthbreaker going to be increasing the damage on it.
Why?
Yeah, so we recently adjusted his passive, which took a lot of the edge off.
Why?
Of the game. So we wanted to give some of that back and give him.
He
some
was
additional
already
utility,
played as
mainly
fucking
some base
support damage
damage
dealer.
For the strength that he lost in his passive. Earthbreaker is going to be a little bit better to clear early on.
He's
but as
still
you rank it up, it's gonna
fucking
provide that extra
broken
base damage.
in support
And we've
role,
seen
I'm
a lot of
talking
warriors
about.
we make these type
If
of
you
changes,
have,
like
like-
small base damage adjustments or small scaling adjustments. They
I
really do
mean,
a lot,
he is.
in the long term.
You just
So
need
we're
good
excited to see where
team
Hercules
com.
actually falls, especially
He's
now that he's
picked
level 1
mainly
and it's
because
so
of his
beautiful.
CC
Most
and
definitely.
early damage.
All right, let's move on to
And we buffing
Izanami
him
here.
even
Death
more?
draws nigh. Izanami's sickle projectile will increase as she gains attack speed. This should result more closely with her sickle returning before a second one fires.
This is a spicy one. Izanami's basic attacks.
I liked
are
Izanami.
strange, and that's
Season
intentional,
6,
right?
really.
Did some really cool,
I played her a
interesting
lot.
things. These boomerang attacks, but one, and we kept all of her basic attack properties the same, except for the pass through and the returning. What that has created, though, is when she starts building fast attack speed, she starts having multiple projectiles in the play space at the same time.
Yeah.
Some going this way, some going that way, and it gets really a bit cluttered and confusing. So now we have added a new buff to her where her basic attack projectiles actually fly faster as her attack speed goes faster, which keeps it so she pretty much only has one sickle ever at a time. Makes it much easier to see, a lot easier to focus on. Makes her basic attacks feel a lot better.
Does it?
It is a potentially powerful change, though. So we will keep an eye on her. This goddess has been pretty casual strong for a long time, but has never really broken into the pro player high-ranked play. I'm really interested to see if this change is able to do that, or if she just becomes like a casual nightmare. We're going to keep a close eye on it either way, but we wanted to make her feel as good as possible first before we started accompanying it with a whole lot of additional nerfs.
Right, for sure. All right, next up we got Merlin. We're going to be seeing a shift here. Frostbolt, we're going to be decreasing the scaling, but then Radiate, lots of changes.
Fucking needed.
We're going to be decreasing the time between ticks, and then changing that has lots of implications for magical power scaling.
That's
I'll let
needed
Pon,
as well.
our math expert
Because
here,
the fire
will be
stance with
explaining
his
here.
2 wasn't usable.
Yeah, so the quick of this change is Merlin's range poke is quite good. Frostbolt's really good. Blizzard's really good. The arcane orb that flies out's really good. But the Radiate channel is very risky, and often it didn't really match up visually with what was going on. It's a channeled fire beam, but it only had half-second interval ticks, so you'd be hovering a fire beam on someone and they're not really getting hit, which felt strange. So we've increased the tick rate so that it actually feels a bit more responsive when you're using it, and we've done damage adjustment numbers to make it worthwhile to cast in range if you're going to put yourself at risk and be that far forward with Merlin. So ticks faster, and the math adjustment largely means that if you get the full channel off on someone, you're going to be doing more damage than you were previously.
Most definitely. All right, speaking of more damage, we've got Naja up next, and he's seeing some sizable buffs here. First up, we've got Flaming Spear, changing the heal there to be 0.75 of your maximum health per stack. Then Armillary Sash. This ability can no longer crit, but we're increasing the damage on it and increasing the scaling by 50%.
Come back to my fucking healing.
Windfire Wheels. We're going to be increasing the beads window for Windfire Wheels. And then upon landing, you're going to be gaining protections.
Ooh,
so lots of stuff for not.
That's good.
I might need some help here explaining all this, Pon, but I'll let me take a first shot at it. There's a couple different goals all happening at once here. We want to keep an eye on avoiding Naja from being a support, or too good of a support. For a long time, we could not buff Naja in very many meaningful ways because she would just go back to dominating the duo lane in a way that was frustrating. So certain changes in this
buffed her.
Power scaling and making the heal not heal off of max
She's
health.
better support.
Move him towards
not
an
removing
assassin, or an assassin
what?
direction. We're also looking into some just quality of life issues. So we had a lot of basic attack animation bugs that could occur when using his self-stim, and we also had some just kind of confusion and difficulty building and not so fun gameplay with dealing with ability.
Ulti was mainly beats burner.
They just wanted a more consistent experience. When you're playing an assassin like him, they just want you to be able to deal damage. They don't want to necessarily be surprised by whether or not this damage is huge.
But I don't get it. 2, 4, 6, 8,
this
and
out with the ultimate. The ultimate
2, 6, 4 is percent,
essentially we're shifting it. We're applying two different things to it. One is that we're making the beads window so that what we mean by that is the time when Naja hits a god before they're carried into the air. We're increasing that slightly. That's going to allow for players to react to it. We did already do this once, but we've still essentially been reported, especially even by pro players, that say when you get hit by this at point blank range, it's virtually humanly impossible to beads it. So we're making that more doable, but then we're also giving the Naja player a bonus for firing their ultimate. Now, Pon, you could probably talk a little bit more here about this final protection.
Your visual is lagging.
Yeah, so this is when you land. So this is in the situation where like it immediately gets canceled
up in the air.
Yep. Right. But the goal here is that when you actually are successful in that case, often you're just going to land and immediately die. Assassin players who aren't building protections, they're going to get a lot more leverage out of those protections to survive. Whereas if they
that's good. She's even better.
They have
support.
They have the new power scaling.
Assassin supporting is
survive those
back.
situations. So they have
was
some
it
toolkits,
season
but
6 or
they don't really have a way
season
to
7 start?
And support.
No, it was
Naja
at season 6,
really
right?
Need this in the first place, and they can't really leverage the.
But Assassins was supporting.
Assassin Naja player can, and that's the goal of a lot of these shifts is really making it so that when you
Way
build
back.
power, when you
Fenrir is back, Nasha is back.
you're going to be able to use all those parts of your kit a lot better.
I mean, people was still playing her in this season. It
for clarity,
it wasn't
if
like
you fire Naja's
good or
ultimate
bad,
and
but now it's gonna be really good.
cleansed, you will not get the protections buff. You have to go up into the air and then kill someone or do the whole thing and then come down to get that.
Correct.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Well, then let's move right along to Raijin up next. Going to be seeing some buffs here as well. Percussive Storm, we're going to be decreasing the cooldown.
That's his one,
Same
right?
thing with Raiju. And then Thunder Crash, we're going to be increasing the scaling on lightning and thunder damage from 20% to 30%.
That's your getaway.
So Raijin getting some adjustments here.
So
Raijin's been one of those characters that there's a bit of history that kind of
that's your
kept
getaway
Raiju and
skill.
Thunder Crash having low damage and higher cooldowns, in that he used to be able to really like wombo
Raiju cooldown,
with those two abilities in tandem.
Storm
We did a lot of adjustments
cooldown,
since then, so Raiju getting the decreased cooldown for help clear and more aggressive
build
poke, as
cooldown.
well as Thunder
So
Crash getting a bit more offensive capability,
the-
which feel pretty safe doing. And then
his
finally,
one
Percussive
gonna
Storm,
be on
just
5
more access
second
more often to his primary
cooldown?
wave clear,
Wait.
helps him compete with other mages in the lane phase.
9 minus 40%.
All right. Next up, we've got
Yeah.
Rama. So this is similar to Hachiman. We got these in alphabetical order, but we could have grouped it with Hachiman up there. Same thing. We're going to be fixing an issue where Rama could fire abilities after exiting his ultimate a little bit earlier.
Yes!
So this is essentially
Fucking
a
yes!
pretty sizable nerf to Rama.
You wanna stun him, he's already out. You wanna cripple him, he's already out.
Rama, after landing from his ultimate, can escape
That's
things
good.
really quickly.
And if you're
This isn't a
Ras sniping
big,
him, then he's
amount of
landing.
time
He's
we're adding
already
to this,
fucking
but
out
we just
because
wanna
of
make
this
sure that
fucking
Rama
bug.
looks like he actually lands and the character animates and then can roll and dash properly. Because right now, or before this change,
No
you're
animation,
able to
he's
dash so
teleporting.
quickly that Rama doesn't really
Right
do
now.
his animations intentionally. So this is being slowed down. This could potentially be a big nerf, but the god has been performing very well for most of the year. So we're not too worried about it, and it is just something that we
Yes,
need
need
to
it.
be fixed.
Need it. Fucking need it.
All right, and then last up for gods, guys, we're almost through. Soul gonna be seeing a buff here.
Oh, hello,
Unstable
Tsuki?
Manifestation, we're gonna be
Tsukuyomi?
increasing the attack speed, and then
Best
Stellar Burst,
fucking god in the
increasing damage.
game.
Yep, similar to Kronos, another major DC we're really keeping our eye on with all the,
From 2,
especially
from 2
the Kate
to
ring mainly.
50%.
And after things kind of settled,
Increase
they're
damage
still
from
underperforming
30
compared
to
their other
40.
major DC counterparts.
Okay,
And so
Soul
we
ADC
feel
is
pretty
back.
safe now, bringing them up more into line. Boost
Increase
the passive
damage
strength
from
and boost the Stellar Burst for
35 to
primary.
40. From 70
All
to
right,
80.
well
so
that is
yeah.
it, guys. That is season 8 balance for 8.1.
Hello!
We did it. We got
Tsukuyomi?
through it so much, but we've still got
Persephone?
a ton more to go over, which is crazy. So you guys have been talking for a long time. We got some community news. You guys can take a break, and I'll break all this stuff down. So first up, voting for the 2021 Olympic
Where is Tsukuyomi nerf?
is live right now.
Are you
We've been bringing
fucking
this program
high?
back. It's been such a huge benefit.
Best
to us, and we've
fucking
had such a
god
pleasure
in the
working
game.
with all of the Olympians that we've had over
Killing-
the past 2 seasons. And we're
Easily
super
winning
excited to bring the
3
program
ones
back
if he's
again.
building
Head
a
over
little
to
bit,
smitegame.com
just a little bit
/Olympians,
tanky.
getting your vote. I believe voting is going to be live just for a week, so be sure to check out all the
Holy
applicants
shit.
there. Definitely going to be a good time. We've got lots of great people on that list that are super deserving. Next up, the TMNT Battle Pass. It's going away in just a